Very cool. Okay, so Odyssey. 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 Yo, if people are there, say something in the chat right now. There you go, cat cam. Sup, Daniel? Oh boy. Yeah, you said something good, good, good. New Prager you dropped today. There is no apolitical classroom. I love every MLK day seeing all the people talk about, you know, aw, we get to all hold hands. Amazing. Look at this, MLK. MLK, you know? He didn't see color, so I don't see color. Actually, the cat is staring at the camera. Actually, if you see color, then you are against MLK. You are the real racist. If you tell black people they are black, if you admit that life is different for black people in America than it is for white people, you are actually reinforcing racist beliefs. You are you're the reason black people are behind in America. If you simply don't tell a black person that they're black, they won't experience racism. It's very, very, very simple. Very smart. Pretty cringe. God. I'm trying to get this set up really quick. That's funny. What's up, Erica? I was eating carrots today. Carrots are really good. You're learning so much. Yeah. I'm going to start the whole MLK thing in a little bit. History really does prefer to remember MLK for many reasons. It's easier to make everything whitewashed when you have someone like him talking about peace and everything. You don't want to remember a really aggressive revolutionary like Malcolm X. The history books aren't going to talk about him. If I learned about Malcolm X in middle school, they brought him up to say that he was an enemy to Martin and nothing else. A radical enemy who was for violence, and he hated white people, and he called them the white devils. That's all you hear about in standard education about Malcolm X, and they don't even talk about the real Martin. Although he was less, I don't know how you would want to say, aggressive with like super revolutionary tactics. Malcolm wanted direct defense of black people. That's why he fell into like black nationalism. And also because when he went to prison, and he found the Nation of Islam, that separatist ideology really took over for Malcolm. And then when he returned from his pilgrimage to Mecca. He believed in a society that could function with white people involved. After thinking white people were irredeemable. Yeah, self-defense of black people. He felt that MLK was sort of laying down, you know? Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, but no yeah, but no Du Bois. Yep. But anyway, my neck is tight all the time. I gotta crack my neck. Well, Malcolm really, oh my god, dude. He developed so much after Mecca. Like him and MLK would have gotten along more, I think, but okay, so just for an overview of Malcolm X. As the nation's most visible proponent of black nationalism, Malcolm X's challenge to the multiracial nonviolent approach of MLK helped set the tone for the ideological and tactical conflicts that took place within the black freedom struggle of the 1960s. So, black nationalism and separation, those were things Malcolm believed in. Um, he joined the Nation of Islam and Islam in general when he went to prison, and he saw the white man as irredeemable, as white devils. As a young boy, his father was actually I forget exactly how he died, but he was lynched in some form. I forget how it directly happened, but when he was a young boy, and throughout his entire life, he experienced nothing but hate, of course, from white America, and that made him believe that society where the races work together would not be possible, which is an obvious path to separation. So, given Malcolm X's abrasive criticism of King and his advocacy of racial separation or separatism, it is not surprising that King rejected the occasional overtures from one of his fiercest critics. So, Malcolm always criticized Malcolm X, and I'm going to get into a video about that. What Malcolm actually says about him is pretty crazy. After Malcolm's assassination in 1965, King wrote to his widow, while we did not always see eye to eye on methods to solve the race problem, I always had a deep affection for Malcolm and felt that he had the great ability to put his finger on the existence and root of the problem. And another thing to note, Malcolm and Martin both died at the age of 39. They did not live past 40. They were both assassinated. Martin, we know, was some behind the scenes corruption when it comes to I forget what the actual story is. People say the CIA, people say government officials, people say people who are antithetical to King's movement. Malcolm is possibly something associated with the Nation of Islam because he ended up leaving the Nation of Islam, but we'll get to that. But yeah, someone assassinated him, and people think it's from the Nation of Islam. I'm not sure though. Um, Yeah, so Malcolm Little, and by the way, he took the name Malcolm X because X is a variable, and of course, Black Americans don't know their true heritage or whatever you want to use for that, like where they actually come from, because white people erased all Black history. Every or most last names of African Americans were given and are the names of white men. A lot of them are slave names that they still carry to this day, which is freaking crazy. But Malcolm Little was born to Louise and Earl Little in Omaha, Nebraska on May 19th, 1925. His father died when he was 6 years old. The victim, he believed, of a white racist group. Following his father's death, Malcolm recalled some kind of psychological deterioration hit our family circle and began to eat away our pride. Oh yeah, his mother, I forgot about this too. His mother was institutionalized. Yeah, she actually did go clinically insane. Um, yeah, he became a ward of the court to be raised by white guardians in various reform schools and foster homes. So you can imagine how that went. I'm pretty sure he moved through Harlem and he got arrested. He was selling like reefer, and I feel like he got arrested, if I remember correctly, um, in a burglary. Yep. And he joined the Nation of Islam while serving a prison term in Massachusetts. And when he got out, I mean, obviously in prison, it's pretty widely accepted it was the Nation of Islam. Yeah, that's what I thought. I have to brush up on it a little bit, though, so I don't want to make too many direct, claims that I'm not fully sure of. But yeah. Yeah, he abandoned his slave name and became Malcolm X, of course. He was the Nation of Islam's leading spokesman. Although Malcolm rejected King's message of nonviolence, he respected King as a fellow leader of our people, sending King articles as early as 1957 and inviting him to participate in mass meetings. But I don't think King ever actually obliged and showed up. A lot of their differences may have been religious as well. When you talk about King being a Baptist preacher, reverend, excuse me. And you talk about Malcolm finding the Nation of Islam. Those could be two things that attribute to their different approaches as well. Yeah, so Malcolm basically saw King as not a true revolutionary. If we talked about it today, we'd probably consider Martin a reform. He's still a radical, but Martin Luther King Jr. was more of a reformist, and Malcolm was more of a revolutionary when you want to talk about those categories of radical change. Now, he was very solid in his beliefs, Malcolm X was, that white people and black people can't really work together, essentially. And he thought no matter what, black people needed to defend themselves from white people and not even try to become integrated and do what MLK wanted to do. He didn't like any of that talk about we should all come together and overcome our backgrounds and our racial differences and we should all come together and be happy. And he didn't really like that message. But when he made a pilgrimage to Mecca, which is what you do, I forget exactly what the actual phraseology is, but if you are Muslim, you are supposed to make a pilgrimage to Mecca. After he did this, what he saw in Mecca really changed his ideas on racial separatism. So he saw there a society in which people from all different races could work in harmony and realized that the issue in America was pretty unique to America when it comes to the relationship between blacks and whites. The Nation of Islam isn't as religious as it is a banner for black Americans who reject white Christianity. Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, because didn't Malcolm and they said that Christianity is the white man's religion and they don't want to take it because it's I forget the quote. But yeah, he wanted to be more aggressive and more militant than MLK. He didn't want to just reform. He didn't want to just integrate. He wanted to take back what was stolen from black people in an aggressive means. But I want to show some clips actually right here. Let's see. There's something in my throat. This is a good video that shows their ideological divides. So Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. It says debate right here, but I don't think they were actually debating, but it does sort of play like a debate. They only actually met once, and it was passing by each other in a hallway. So yeah.
One of the most subsidized land in that
I don't
white sheet and Martin Luther King.
They don't need this corny music, but
Reverend Martin Luther King subsidizes Reverend Martin Luther King so that Reverend Martin Luther King can continue to teach the Negroes to be defenseless. That's what you mean by nonviolent. Be defenseless. Be defenseless in the face of one of the most cruel beasts that has ever taken the people into captivity. That's this American white man. And they have proved it throughout the country by the police dogs and the police clubs. 100 years ago, they used to put on a white sheet and use a bloodhound against Negroes. Today, they have taken off the white sheet and put on police uniforms. They've traded in the bloodhounds for police dogs, and they're still doing the same thing. And just as Uncle Tom, back during slavery, used to keep the Negroes from resisting the bloodhounds.
Yeah, as Blackface America said, he was by definition a black nationalist. Integration wasn't possible to him. He was a separationist. But then he made a pilgrimage to Mecca as part of his passage as being a Muslim man. And he actually wanted to become religiously ingrained in Islam, not just be part of this off branch of like black nationalism that was the Nation of Islam in America. So after Malcolm came back from Mecca, he saw that society working together with basically integrated cultures and races. He came back and became more of a religious thought leader, as well as, you know, mixed in. He was still much more aggressive than King. But when he came back, he was a lot more open to King's ideas after that pilgrimage.
Or resisting the Ku Klux Klan by teaching them to love their enemy or pray for those who use them despitefully. Today, Martin Luther King is just a 20th century or modern Uncle Tom or a religious Uncle Tom who is doing the same thing today to keep Negroes defenseless in the face of attack that Uncle Tom did on the plantation to keep...
I believe this is before Mecca.
...those Negroes defenseless in the face of the attack of the Klan in that
Well,
day.
I don't think of love as, in this context, as emotional bosh. I don't think of it as a weak force, but I think of love as something strong and that organizes itself into powerful direct action. This is what I try to teach in the struggle in the South, that we are not engaged in a struggle that means we sit down and do nothing. That there's a great deal of difference between non-resistance to evil and non-violent resistance. Non-resistance leaves you in a state of stagnant passivity and deadened complacency, wherein non-violent resistance means that you do resist in a very strong and determined manner. And I think some of the criticisms of nonviolence, or some of the critics, fail to realize that we are talking about something very strong, and they confuse non-resistance with nonviolence.
The goal of Dr. Martin Luther King is...
I don't want to compare anything I say to this, obviously, because it's a different topic, but the qualities of it sort of remain the same. The idea that you can fight without being outwardly aggressive. So if you want big change and you want to dismantle systems of oppression, you don't need to be boisterous about it. You don't need to be aggressive about it. You don't need to show a violent response to a violent system. Sometimes the best way to change a violent system is with a non-violent resistance. And that is what MLK advocated for. He still was a radical, 100%, but their tactics differed greatly. Their personalities differed greatly. Who they associated with differed greatly.
Is to give Negroes a chance to sit in a segregated restaurant beside the same white man who had brutalized them for 400 years. The goal of Dr. Martin Luther King is to get Negroes to forgive the people who have brutalized them for 400 years by lulling them to sleep and making them forgetting what those whites have done to them. But the masses of black people in America today don't go for what Martin Luther King is putting down. As you said in one of your articles, it's psychologically insecure, or something of that sort. I forget how you put it. But you didn't endorse what Martin Luther King was doing yourself.
I do not reject his goals of full integration and full equality rights for American citizens. Do you reject these goals?
If you don't think that he's walking on the right road, I'm quite sure you don't agree that he'll get to the right place. And if you would classify his method as psychologically unrealistic, I think that if a man's method is psychologically unrealistic, which means the road or the means or the method that he's using, I think as a psychologist, you would be very doubtful that he would reach the right...
If anyone has ever lived with a nonviolent movement in the South, from Montgomery on through the Freedom Rides and through the sit-in movement and the recent Birmingham movement, and see the reactions of many of the extremists and reactionaries in the white community, he wouldn't say that this movement makes, or this philosophy makes them comfortable. I think it aroused.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. So what MLK is saying back to Malcolm's, and this isn't a direct debate, by the way. This is ideologies conflicting with different interviews, but someone put it together in a way that makes sense, that shows a direct distinction. So he's saying right here how uncomfortable his method truly made people. And a lot of what MLK said is that Malcolm X's response to white terrorism, white supremacy, is actually feeding into their hands because it doesn't actually it's not actually conducive to change. The bigoted white race wants, a black militant force to come back. And that's the argument that MLK made, that it would hurt the overall movement and her overall progress and liberation for black Americans if they would have chosen Malcolm's more, strictly revolutionary path. I think that's the divide they're showing right here. And Malcolm saying that Martin wanted to take an approach that is like laying down and trying to play kumbaya and trying to be like, trying to say we can all be friends, we can forget what happened, which is sort of a straw man for what MLK actually said. But
Causes a sense of shame within them often.
Because if you think about it, and this always sucks, of course, but if you are an activist movement and you come out aggressively, you are giving the state justification in the eyes of the populace to attack you with more force. So there's a weird balance there. It's really interesting seeing the ideological debate between them.
I think it arouses a sense of shame within them often in many instances. I think it does something to touch the conscience and establish a sense of guilt. Now, so
yes,
often
guilt.
People
it makes people feel more guilt.
By
yeah, if you are a racist, if you're a really racist individual and somebody comes at you with complete peace, it might make you more guilty. It makes you feel more guilty. And this is, I don't know if this is founded on anything, but this is what he is arguing, that it makes them feel more guilty than if he came and advocated for aggression. Because if you are a bigoted white person, which 99% of white people are, even if they try to suppress it, then you might say, like, for example, what we're seeing right now, look at these riots. The police deserve to shoot them because they're all crazy. So I think that might be congruent to what this means. You need both. Yeah, I mean, there's a mix to everything, of course.
More in the guilt-evoking act in an attempt to drown the sense of guilt. But this...
But by the way, that is why they don't want to remember Malcolm, and they do remember MLK in a way that isn't true. Because it's easy to remember him in a way that isn't true. You know what I mean? The same thing that MLK advocated for and worked to create change is exactly what our modern system takes advantage of to whitewash what he actually stood for. Because all they focus on is peace and non-aggression and, everybody come together. All they focus on is that. They leave out how he was a radical socialist who was anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist. He was, of course, a big leader in the anti-war movement, a big leader in unionizing workers of all races. That is when he got assassinated talking to auto workers, is when he got assassinated, bringing whites and blacks together in the working class. You could really see how much he was showing success in his, development. And how he developed the movement and developed progress. It really is a marvel to look at. It's amazing. But of course, he was killed in 1969, and 1968. Yeah, I thought it was 69. My bad. So MLK was killed in 1968, and Malcolm was killed in 1965. I mean, that's one of the things, dude. Like, I really wish we could look back at history and see the development of Malcolm X and MLK, like, as they would move forward. Like, they would be alive today, most likely. It's insane. At the end of the day, MLK was asking for black people to be forgiving in exchange for integration, which has inarguably improved black people's lives, but America still hasn't addressed black issues. And that's one thing that Malcolm X said. That's a quote that he said. It's like, if a knife is in 9 inches and you take it, it was like if a knife is in 9 inches and you take it 3 inches out, you still didn't heal it. If you take the knife and you take it completely out, you still didn't heal the wound. That's what Malcolm X said. And he finished the quote by saying, America never even admits there was a knife to begin with. And that's when systemic racism, you know, is never actually addressed by Americans. And I've used that example before in debates and stuff. And I didn't know that Malcolm was a very strong proponent of that analogy. You know, having the knife in the back, even if you take a knife out and there's still a wound, you didn't heal the wound. And if you never even admitted, you know, you don't admit there was a knife or a wound to begin with, you can never actually fix it.
Certainly doesn't make the white man feel comfortable. I think it does the other thing. Conscience and
it doesn't make him comfortable. Yeah, it does not make him comfortable. It doesn't make white people comfortable. That's what MLK just said. And also, there's a story about John Lewis in his memoir. Hey, what's up, Kurt Winkelman? I made that video private. I think I said one thing that was factually incorrect, and I don't want to have anything factually incorrect on my channel. I can make another video on it, but I don't want to, you know what I mean? I don't want disinformation or misinformation on my videos. But yeah. Oh yeah, in John Lewis's memoir, he talks about how he was really young and fiery. He was really emotional. He was going to give a speech during a march on Washington. And this is at the same time when movement leaders were in discussions with the administration, the presidential administration, about the Civil Rights Act or another piece of, it might have been that, or an early form of it. I forget what year this was. But John Lewis wanted to go out and attack the administration and be super aggressive and say, this administration is disgusting, evil, they are not doing enough to help black people or whatever, they hate black people, the racist system, whatever, all that stuff. He wanted to be really, really aggressive towards the administration. And movement leaders actually got a hold of the speech John Lewis was about to give and said, don't say this. I know this is true. I know this is what you feel. I know this is the reality, but don't say this because it will hurt our, you know, capability to actually make change. If John Lewis would have came out and screamed at the administration because they were doing politics behind the scenes, and moving minds behind the scenes, and if, you know, they would have came out and attacked the administration, you're going to lose political capital doing that, which is a really interesting thing to look at. So John Lewis was going to go crazy in that speech, but he, you know, reined it in a little bit. He wrote it over again and took out that part.
This approach certainly doesn't make the white man feel comfortable. I think it does the other thing. Conscience, and it disturbs this sense of contentment.
Nothing will they ever do. They will always talk it, but they won't practice it. And with the Supreme Court, if the NAACP can tell me that they want a desegregation decision for me 10 years ago, but yet the schools haven't been desegregated, as I say, this is a victory with no victory. It's a victory that you can talk about, but it's a victory you can't show me. So if you represent the NAACP and you're telling me about this great victory you won for me, when I look at you, I have to conclude that either you have been duped yourself or else you are trying to dupe me. And in most instances where the civil rights struggle is involved, there is no civil rights leader can point to me one concrete gain, practical gain that black people have made in the civil rights field in this country, not only during the past 10 years, but during the past 100 years.
I don't think there's any real organization to the riots. I think they grow out of the conditions that I've mentioned all along. And as long as these intolerable conditions are there, as long as the Negro finds himself living every day in a major depression, then every city will sit on a powder keg and can explode over the slightest incident. I feel that killing is a very tragic way to deal with any social problem. There is no violent solution to the problem that the Negro confronts in this country, and this is why I have constantly said that riots are socially destructive and self-defeating. After all, the Negro ends up on the losing end. We can't win a violent revolution. Most of the persons killed in riots are Negroes themselves. The persons who end up not being able to get milk for their children of Negroes because things where they have to live are destroyed. So there's no practical or moral answer in the realm of violence to the Negro's problem. But I do understand the sociological, the psychological, and the economic reasons.
Problem can be solved. First, the white man.
Yeah, and obviously, we can use that to extrapolate over all of history in general. Especially right now, we hear that quote brought up from MLK. Riots being the message or the voice of the unheard, or whatever that exact quote is, talking about what's happening today. But the issue is, again, white people don't understand there's even a problem to begin with. So a lot of even white liberals, even well-intentioned people, you bring up to them that there are systemic issues facing black people, and they don't understand there's a knife there. You say there's white privilege, but they don't understand it. They never even comprehended it in the slightest. You say that black people every single day are experiencing pressure that they can't comprehend, and they just don't, they overall can't and won't and don't understand it. So we can talk all the time about these final conclusions, these solutions, defund the police and, where it makes sense, where the budgets are freaking overbearing and freaking over-policing is such a big issue. We can talk about how socioeconomics leads to a high crime rate. But, if we don't first somehow get these people to understand the foundation of where these problems come from, how are they ever going to care about the solution? Because like you said in chat, it doesn't directly affect them. So you're basically playing off of human decency where you can find it, because it's not going to affect white people until it does. Until there are riots, then it affects white people. But you have to be able to focus that attention in the right way when that does happen. It's a really interesting. Well, Joe Lewis was pretty conservative. Or John Lewis, I mean, not Joe.
Black man have to be able to sit down at the same table. The white man has to feel free to speak his mind without hurting the feelings of that Negro. And the so-called Negro has to feel free to speak his mind without hurting the feelings of the white man. Then they can bring the issues that are under the rug out on top of the table and take an intelligent approach to get the problem solved. That's the only way that they'll ever do it. We need an action program while we are Muslims, or while we are Christians, or while we are whatever we are. We still need an action program that will eliminate these evils that are in our community. And this is what we're trying to do with the Muslim Mosque Incorporated.
Do you consider yourself militant?
I consider myself Malcolm.
Well, I think
he really was so charismatic and everything. It's crazy. So I don't want to say, I know saying well-spoken, I guess, is bad. It might have a racist connotation. I don't know what that, because if you say, oh, that black person's so well-spoken, but his speaking and articulation ability is really all-time, it's all-time great. It really is amazing how powerful of a speaker he was. It's amazing. Honestly, people talk about Barack Obama being a good speaker, being one of the best speakers of all time. Malcolm was definitely up there. But, of course, history is only going to consider people, great in any regard if they actually get a chance to hear them and, the lens in which they hear about these people. So like Malcolm, for example, every classroom in America talks about Malcolm as a crazy revolutionary radical who hated white people and hated Martin Luther King. That is what 90% of people in America actually think about Malcolm X. So the true greatness of him will never be realized. Even if I disagree with his stance at the beginning of the separation and black nationalism. There's no denying it, how crazy and good it was.
I have to agree that this appears to be the result of an internal...
Yeah, he was so rhetorically perfect.
...conflict within the black nationalist movement. So I think the first thing that needs to be done is for a conference of goodwill to take place between black nationalist leaders. This was why I suggested a few days ago that the followers of the late Malcolm X and the followers of Elijah Muhammad should sit down at the peace table together, so to speak, and discuss this problem and try to reach some understanding. I don't think, and I'm sure, that nothing can be accomplished by violence. It only leads to new and more complex social problems. I think it is unfortunate for the black nationalist movement. I think it is unfortunate for the health of our nation.
I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time.
Okay, well, I guess whoever made this video is a memer. Yeah, he was really quick, witty, quick on his feet. I consider myself Malcolm.
The texture of your hair. Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet?
Brought up in the United States, Malcolm X had seen and suffered from the systemic racism against African Americans all his life, with his own father having likely been lynched by white supremacists. Soon Malcolm X, became a prominent leader of the black separatist movement. He believed that white people could never be allies of black people in their struggle for justice. For this reason, he described Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech as the farce on Washington, writing in his autobiography that, whoever heard of angry revolutionists all harmonizing, we shall overcome, while tripping and swaying along arm in arm with the very people they were supposed to be angrily revolting against?
Yeah, so, like, they were the enemy. Why are you asking for unity with the enemy? That's what he's basically saying. Like, I have a dream that we can someday work together. Like, no, we can't work together. What the hell? That's what Malcolm thought of.
Yet when Malcolm X went to Hajj, the Muslim pilgrimage, his perspective on the white races changed profoundly. In his now famous letter from Mecca, he wrote, "During the past 11 days here in the Muslim world, I have eaten from the same plate, drunk from the same glass, and slept on the same rug, while praying to the same God, with fellow Muslims whose eyes were the bluest of blue, whose hair was the blondest of blonde, and whose skin was the whitest of white. And in the words and in the deeds of the white Muslims, I felt the same sincerity that I felt among the black African Muslims of Nigeria, Sudan, and Ghana. We were truly all the same, brothers, because their belief in one God had removed the white from their minds, the white from their behavior, and the white from their attitude."
Yeah, so even with this experience, he still saw white as the big negative thing here, but he saw their religious connection transcend the whiteness, you know, the evil whiteness, because whiteness, of course, is innately evil to Malcolm X, especially at this point.
Here he used the word white to mean the racist attitudes he had fought against in so many white people of his day. He went on to write, "I could see from this that perhaps if white Americans could accept the oneness of God, then perhaps too they could accept in reality the oneness of man, and cease to measure and hinder and harm others in terms of their differences in colour." What is it about the Islamic belief in the unity of God that Malcolm X felt would corrode Western racism? Well, he had experienced an alternative all his life. In Christianity, God is split into three persons, the idea known as the Trinity. As part of this, we are told that God chose to incarnate himself into human form as Jesus. It was this concept that allowed the idea of God to become a vehicle for the racism of man. Those white Europeans who already thought that they were superior, who found it politically expedient to demonize dark-skinned peoples, suddenly found a way of making their racism religious. God, they said, was a white man.
Just because it makes you feel uncomfortable doesn't mean it has to change. You know, I mean, Jesus was a white man too, but you know, it's like...
For well over 1,000 years, Christians have been depicting Jesus, an Arab, as a white, blue-eyed European. They thus solidified racism in their culture and provided a pretext for the white saviors to colonize the brown and black people of the world. God's white, and so are we, they said, while forcibly converting slave populations of West Africans to that belief too.
Schools were still segregated, so he didn't believe in the Civil Rights Act. He lived 11 years. Yeah, so he didn't believe in systemic reform. You know what's really notable too? They never cover, and when I say they, I mean education and media or whatever. They never cover the riots and protests that erupted after Martin Luther King got actually assassinated. I don't know much about what happened after that. I haven't really seen much historical what's it called? Description of it. Yeah, Malcolm and MLK. I think they literally did meet like once, and it was a short time.
They thus entrenched in the minds of white Americans and Europeans the notion of their race as pure, heavenly, and divine. In the minds of the African American slaves, however, such depictions only reinforce their own sense of worthlessness and inferiority.
Wait, so tell me this, if somebody in chat knows. So, the separation movement and Malcolm, they saw white people as thinking they were pure. So white people thought they were pure, and white people were the white devils to these separationists and the black nationalists. So, what did they think about black people then? If white people thought they were pure and white people were white devils, did black people think, black nationalists think the same, in a reverse way? So black people are superior, or did they just think white people are innately evil in a sense, and black people weren't like great, but they were, they weren't innately evil? And I know there's a lot connecting back to the movie. Actually, Black Panther goes back into this, thinking how, what's that thing called? The precious metal in Black Panther. It's used to represent the wealth hidden in Africa. Yeah, and I know also they talk a lot about how Jesus was born and was in the Middle East and Egypt, which Egypt is considered to be in Africa today, I'm pretty sure. Vibranium. Yeah. Yeah, vibranium. So vibranium, the hidden wealth of Africa, Pine cones, yeah, from last night.
With the universalization of many aspects of Western culture, not least Christianity, through colonialism to South and North America, Australasia, India, Africa, and the Far East, this mindset reached billions. But Christianity is not the only religion to be used as a vehicle for racism. In Hinduism too, almost all of the 33 million gods are fair-skinned, with only a few being dark. Indeed, the most famous Hindu epic is the story of Ramayana of Valmiki, in which the fair-skinned hero Ram banishes the dark-skinned demon god Ravana. It is no surprise that religion is thought to play a fundamental role in the perpetuation of the deeply racist caste system of India, in which the Brahmins, who are invariably the fairest skinned, constitute the highest caste, and the so-called untouchables, or Dalits, who are invariably darker skinned, constitute the lowest. What is the common thread here? Christianity and Hinduism are very different in many respects, yet it is their belief that God can be divided which makes the difference. The belief in multiple gods in whatever form means that God is no longer the most perfect being. He's no longer immaterial, transcendent, and beyond the beyond. He can now be limited and broken up into crude material forms. But here's the problem. When God is not one, he is not God. He becomes just like everything else, subject to color, form, and shape. As soon as that happens, you suddenly see God popping up everywhere in religious iconography, with pictures and statues featuring prominently in both the Christian and Hindu cultures. It is this that opens the door for religion to be racialized, for God to become fair-skinned rather than dark-skinned, for the racism of the few to become the religion of the many.
And I always ask my mother, I said, Mother, how come is everything white? I said, why is Jesus white with blonde hair and blue eyes? Why is the Lord's Supper all white men? Angels are white, Pope and Mary and everything.
By the way, take notice how talking about these issues, I get 1/4 of the viewers, because people only, they don't typically care about this stuff. Remember to notice that stuff.
Angels. I said, Mother, when we die, do we go to heaven? She said, naturally we go to heaven. I said, well, what happened to all the black angels when they took the pictures?
Oh, that's a good quote. That's a good
Jesus
quote.
white with blonde hair and blue eyes. Why is the Lord's Supper all white men? Angels are white, Pope and Mary and even the angels. I said, Mother, when we die, do we go to heaven? She said, naturally we go to heaven. I said, well, what happened to all the black angels when they took the pictures?
Oh yeah, there's that thing about all humanity came from black people in Africa. Humanity started in Africa. Therefore, yeah, there was a movement of people who, yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, the motherland, sort of. Yeah, I sort of forgot about that piece. And another thing that built off of black nationalism is how, like, Farrakhan and everything, they do say literally the same exact Jewish question stuff about the globalists and the global banks and all that stuff, you know what I mean? So that's really interesting, too. How they ended up, like nationalist ideologies, whether it's black or white, seem to fall along the same, like, lines for certain issues, but in like a reverse connotation.
When one considers, therefore, the Islamic teaching that God, Allah, is perfectly one, indivisible, without form or human incarnation, never to be depicted in any way, one begins to understand the deep underlying wisdom behind it. God is above and beyond all of us, and we can only reach him through our righteousness. Becoming like God becomes a spiritual journey, not a material reality. But the wisdom of the idea that God is one goes even deeper, for it is a statement about the fundamental nature of humanity too. If God is one, then...
Well, that's a conversation. Is it right to call... What would Malcolm be considered? What would Malcolm X be considered on a political spectrum? Left? Right? He definitely didn't like conservatives, and he did not like liberals. He said that liberals, I'll bring up that quote then. But was he to the left of that? Because he did associate with nationalist ideology, but he still was more left wing. And then you look at people like Huey Newton, who definitely were 100% about bringing all people that are struggling together through like revolutionary socialist ideology. I feel like he would have gotten along with that a little bit. Like that would be a natural progression. And the reason he was with the Nation of Islam was simply because in his weakest part of his life, like in prison when he was reading and all that stuff, reevaluating his entire life, when he was contacted by Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad, that was what found him at that time. So he needed something to latch onto, and Nation of Islam was that. And after he actually became religiously ingrained in Islam after Mecca, then he left the Nation of Islam after they had a big fallout. And then after the fallout, of course, it's pretty agreed upon as Black-Faced America said, it's pretty agreed upon that the Nation of Islam was responsible for his assassination.
We all share the same common origin, and no one person can claim superiority over another. This sentiment found its greatest manifestation in the last sermon of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be on him, delivered on the 6th of March in the year 632, on the plain of Arafat, where Muslims like Malcolm X to this day perform the Hajj. He said, "All mankind is from Adam and Eve. An Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab, nor a non-Arab has any superiority over an Arab. A white has no superiority over a black, nor a black has any superiority over white, except by piety and good action." Does this mean that there are no racist Muslims? Of course not. But it does mean that in Islam they find no justification for their racism, and further, that Islam is a powerfully anti-racist ideology. If America and the West in general wants to be free from the scourge of racism, they need to look deeper and further back than a few years or even a few decades. They need to look at the multi-generational consequences of the belief that God can become man, and that when he did, even God preferred to be white rather than black.
When did the Black Panther movement really get kicked up? Oh, I'm trying to Google this, but I'm getting movie summaries. When did first 1966. Huey Newton and Bobby Seale, who met Merritt College in Oakland. Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, BPP, was founded in October 1966 in Oakland. Okay. Okay, so here is an interview that Malcolm X did in 1965 post-Mecca. So you can really see a difference in his tone from what we saw earlier in his approach and his language and rhetoric directed towards MLK.
Tonight, Front Page Challenge welcomes the outspoken Negro leader, Malcolm X.
Sir, what's the real reason why you two men split? Is it merely ideological, or is it personality? What else?
Probably personality. It was not the statement that originally was given by the movement when we split. It's more personality than anything else.
You've called people like Martin Luther King, who just got a Nobel Peace Prize, an Uncle Tom. Is this correct, first?
Well, I'd rather say that in the States, there's a law that has recently been passed, or a decision handed down by the court, wherein if you call someone an Uncle Tom, they can sue you for libel.
Well,
so I never refer to them as Uncle Toms. I would say that Uncle Martin is my friend.
Uncle Martin is your friend, yet you would disagree with his approach to what he wants to accomplish.
Definitely. If his approach would bring about what the black man in America needs to completely eliminate the problem that we have, I would say well and good. But I very much doubt that anyone who adopts the approach that Martin Luther King has been teaching to our people in that country can point to any meaningful gains that has actually served to solve the problem.
Black Muslims.
So his language there is directly saying that MLK is not pushing for something that can eliminate or thoroughly eliminate the true problem that black Americans face. And in 1965, as people were saying, Oh yeah, I read Malcolm X's autobiography as my first ever book, actually, in like 7th grade. But what was I talking about? Oh yeah, 1965. He didn't believe that any reforms through government worked whatsoever. He didn't see any results out of what MLK was doing, whatsoever. But yeah.
Have sometimes, whether you have or not, and I think probably you have sometimes, it seemed to me, been preaching hate to meet hate.
I don't advocate any kind of hate.
There's a lot of talk that sounds very much like it.
No, I think that the guilt complex of the American white man is so profound until when you begin to analyze the real condition of the black man in America, instead of the American white man eliminating the causes that create that condition, he tries to cover it up by accusing his accusers of teaching hate. But actually, they're just exposing him for being responsible for what exists.
Well, that's something of an argument, but I've heard speeches made by some of the people of your group. I think I've heard you make speeches. It seemed to me that you were advocating what I would have to describe, I think, as violence to meet the serious injuries that have been done your people with which
he considered it self-defense.
I don't call that violence. I don't in any way encourage black people to go out and initiate acts of aggression indiscriminately against whites. But I do believe that the black man in the United States and any human being, anywhere, is well within his right to do whatever is necessary, by any means necessary, to protect his life and property, especially in a country where the federal government itself has proven that it is either unable or unwilling to protect the lives and property of those human beings.
Just before Pierre takes it, you've got a pretty good fighter and the world's heavyweight champion lined up with you to help out. Yes, Pierre.
Well, Mr. X, if I guess I call you that, is that the proper appellation, yes. Mr. X? I'm wondering if you still believe, as I think you certainly did at the time you were allied to the black Muslim movement, in a segregated black nation in North America.
I don't believe in any form of segregation or any form of racism. I'm against any form of segregation and against racism.
Is it, am I right in saying that the black Muslim movement, which you have left, did believe in that?
Well, Elijah Muhammad taught his followers that the only solution was a separate state for black people. And as long as I thought he genuinely believed that himself, I believed in him and believed in his solution. But when I began to doubt that he himself believed that that was feasible, and I saw no kind of action designed to bring it into existence or bring it about, then I turned in a different direction.
Are you still a Muslim yourself?
Oh, yes. I'm a Muslim. I believe in the religion of Islam, which believes in brotherhood, complete brotherhood of all people. But at the same time that I believe in this brotherhood, I don't believe in forcing my desire for brotherhood upon those who aren't willing to accept it.
Of course, I think the Christians would say that they also believed in brotherhood. What did you say to that?
I'd say they believe in it, but don't practice it.
That'd be a pretty good answer.
Sir, when the muezzin goes up in the minaret twice a day, he cries to the world, there is but one God, and he is Allah. Do you deny that there is a Christian God?
The muezzin does this 5 times a day.
5 times, and I only heard him twice.
Well, you were fortunate to hear him twice. But he does this 5 times a day, and the same God that he says that he expresses the existence of is the God that the Christians profess to believe in themselves, and the God that the Jews believe in, one God.
He wasn't for directly going and like beating up white people. He was for self-defense and self-defense of black people by any means necessary. He wasn't like outwardly violent. It was like it was a reaction to what was being, you know, given to black people. Well, and that's pretty much what he just explained. I was just thinking about how the religion thing again. I don't know enough about Islam to talk about how that may influence Malcolm's tactics and stuff. But when it comes to Christianity, just thinking about the story of Jesus going on the cross and taking all the brutal punishment, and people hold that up, you know, above all else in America. Like, Jesus suffered. Jesus was willing to not even fight back. Jesus took it and didn't even retaliate whatsoever. And that's sort of what MLK advocated for. Like, you're going to be beat up and oppressed and everything. And Jesus was, oh my God, there's an aside real quick. There's a line from Killer Mike on the song by Run the Jewels, Run the Jewels 4, RJ4, or RTJ4, Walking in the Snow. Killer Mike's first verse, the end. He says, never forget in the story of Jesus, the hero was killed by the state. And it does remind me of this, you know, especially MLK, you know, nonviolence, taking a beating, arrested throughout his entire life, and then killed by the state on display, essentially. But still ended up creating a lot of change. It's really interesting. And by the way, a lot of Christians in America, even knowing what Jesus is said to be doing in the Bible, Jesus's only time being aggressive and violent in the Bible was literally storming the market and flipping over tables of people who were exploiting the poor. Only time Jesus was violent. But American Christians, some denominations, there's many different kinds of Christians, of course, but the American Christians that seem to have a lot of power, especially more conservative ones, don't care about any of those virtues. They are for violence. They are for hating the poor. They are for hating themselves. They're for individualism. They're not for collectivism. It's really insane how you can read that book. And if you just read that book objectively, the Bible, and you see the story of Jesus, it's a decent philosophical venture. You know what I mean? The story of Jesus isn't bad within itself. It's the people that manipulated it over time. And of course, the people who probably translated the Bible over and over again, but Killer Mike's, yeah, interesting.
Creator of the universe. The Muslims believe in the God that created the universe, and I think the Christians do, and the Jews do. Now, as long as all of them are talking about the Creator, the Jews may call him Jehovah, and Christians may have another name for him. Those who are Arabic-speaking refer to him as Allah. Well, we believe in the same God.
Now, that's one thing, though, when we're trying to connect this. Jesus isn't the problem. That is a big thing, though, with progressivism in general. Jesus isn't the problem. Religion isn't the problem. It's the people that have taken this, that have taken humanity and exploited it for their own gain. So we shouldn't be adverse to religion as progressives. We should be trying to grow off of it and find principles that we can get in agreement with people and use that as a bridge.
As the Muslim religion advances in the United States, are you...
No, I'm saying I don't know enough about Islamic ideals. I just don't know enough to make any... I know enough about Christianity to talk about how MLK was influenced by it, but I don't know enough about Islam. I can't say anything about how Malcolm was influenced by it. I can talk about how he was influenced by the Nation of Islam, of course, and his lived experience, but not actual... Islam in his actual religious practice, so I don't know enough. There's a big debate going on also. I hear a decent amount about this from Royce the 5'9". Black capitalism versus black socialism, and I think Huey Newton got into those conversations a lot. Black leaders all throughout, past 50, 60 years have been talking about this. Is it better to try to outcompete people in capitalism or focus on, changing the system through socialism? And it seems like the agreed upon approach by most people is a combination. So like black ownership and also, try to change the system at the same time. Don't you think believing in something without evidence is bad though? Seems if somebody believes in God without evidence, they are more likely to believe in other things without evidence, but you need to play on their human nature. Religion stems from the human. It's like, there's a lot of different things about religion, and these people's foundation is already predicated upon this understanding of the world. And we should try to meet them on that. There are ways for us to meet them where they are. They're not going to become super secular, agnostic, atheists, whatever. I'm just saying there is a way to reach them where they are. We're not going to be able to change their entire freaking worldview, though, of course. Like, we're believing stuff without evidence when we're talking about social... Like, seriously, you can't believe... This is sort of a meme, but you can't believe in socialism without believing in something without evidence. Like, This idea of a world that can work together with people who actually care for each other without exploitation. The idea that that can, that is a belief system, because nothing about reality says that can work. I know it's different. It's a little bit of a meme, but still. All of us have our own things we believe that can't come true. All of us have belief systems that are not congruent with reality. Even if we think we're the most practical, pragmatic mother trucker in the world. I say trucker, not the F word, mother trucker in the world. Even if we think that, we are still very oblivious to our own reality. It might be necessary. Yeah, religion might be necessary. It is something that it is a foundation. It is community based. There's a lot of good things about it. But we just got to find out how to get the best version out, This is the whole thing with my channel, too. Like, we don't need to go against the grain with everything. We can find a way to convince people progressivism is better capitalism or whatever. We can convince people collectivism is better community. We can convince people that caring for one another is better religion. But
modernizing it or sticking with the old faiths, for example, the complete segregation of the sexes.
I think that everything today on this earth is being modernized. Religious principles and practices, as well as political and other things.
Now, when you went to Mecca, this is a very sacred and forbidden city. I tried to get to Mecca myself, and certainly didn't make it, not being a Muslim.
It's not forbidden.
How would they
it's not
accept you as
forbidden.
one? You're an American. There are few American Muslims.
This is true, and by being an American and not having not being able to speak the Arabic language, I did strike a snag, a very serious snag, but I was fortunate to have been pretty well known by the officials in Arabia, and they knew too that I had accepted Orthodox Islam. It had been highly publicized in the paper, and I became a guest of the state. I was a guest of Prince Faisal, the present King Faisal, and they made it possible for me to go before the committee, Hajj committee or Hajj court, who examines you and asks you questions about your belief. And if you pass it, then you are okay to go to Mecca. But it's
you would have to have a translator then.
I had one. Then realizing that our problem in America, that we are black Americans, and we have a problem that goes beyond religion, we formed a group known as the Organization of Afro-American Unity. And the objective of this organization, it's non-religious, number one. Any Negro can belong to it. And the objective of that organization is to bring about a condition that will guarantee respect and recognition of the 22 million black Americans as human beings. We feel that the problem, number one, of the black man in America is beyond America's ability to solve. It's a human problem, not an American problem or a Negro problem. And as a human problem or a world problem, we feel that it should be taken out of the jurisdiction of the United States government and the United States courts and taken into the United Nations in the same manner that the problems of the black man in South Africa, Angola, and other parts
Oh, yeah, he was a strong proponent. Did he ever actually get to do it? He wanted to take this to the United Nations, black conditions in America.
The world, and even the way they're trying to bring the problems of the Jews in Russia into the United Nations because of violation of human rights. We believe that our problem is one not a violation of civil rights, but a violation of human rights.
Yes.
Not only are we denied the right to be a citizen in the United States, we're denied the right to be a human being.
Mr. X, may I thank you very much for coming on our program and perhaps clearing away some of the cobwebs of misconception that some of us might have had about your belief. And I think you're a very sincere man, and it takes a lot of courage to admit a former belief is wrong, and we congratulate you for that and the service you performed tonight in giving us your views. Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you.
Calling ourselves socialists? No, I still don't think it's right, even if they're going to call you a socialist. Like, for the voters we need, I understand they're going to call us... There's the cat. Look at him sleeping. They're going to call us socialist no matter what. But there's a difference between, for example, what I would do if somebody says, am I a socialist? I would say, I am not a socialist, but here's what socialism actually means. That's my strategy. I don't want to say, yes, I'm a socialist. Because I don't want to carry that label, the weight of that label. I don't want my political ideology to be used in the name of the National Socialists in Germany or the USSR in the Soviet Union. I don't want to be tied to other people who use the same label. That's just me. I understand fixing socialism. And by the way, while at the same time, while I am saying I'm not a socialist, I am trying to improve socialists' position by telling people what it actually is. Personally, though, where I am, it doesn't make sense. And, you know, I'd rather just be a normal transition. I want to change minds in a way that people don't even know. What's up, Kevin? Thank you. This is the worst my beard has gotten of all time. I'm letting it go before I go back to school. I'm going to shave it then. Yeah, it depends who you're talking to. It depends what part of the country you're in. Depends what kind of district you're in. Depends, you know, what kind of group you're in. Like, if I'm talking to an organizing group of people that I know are progressives, I might say, you know, I might talk about socialism and all that stuff, whatever. If I'm talking to regular people, I'm not going to say anything like that. Yeah, if I'm going to run for office, I'm not calling myself a freaking socialist. If Bernie Sanders did not call himself a socialist, things would have gone better. 100%. Yeah, use socialism like... Socialism should be how you yourself describe your beliefs. Like, in conversations, we don't need very specific terminology when we're talking about dialogue and conversations with people. We don't need to pin down our exact political ideology. You know what I am? I'm a real Democrat. I am a real Democrat. I support workers. I support unions. I support healthcare. I'm a real Democrat. I'm against big money. Nancy Pelosi, she's a fake Democrat. Like, if I'm talking to a Republican or a moderate. Yeah, New Deal Democrat. Say I am the real Democratic Party, you know. Oh, thank you for the $2 super chat. Second place prize. usorelse.org. I appreciate everybody here, even though it's not a popular culture conversation. These conversations are really important, you know. Let me check this out. Well, never take progress as a given, you know. Things can go backwards very quickly. Part of fighting for progress is fighting for, like, stability. Especially in America. Us or else. You don't have to don't worry about donating more. A lot of you are being very generous. Nighthawk is a platinum member on Patreon. My freaking car broke. I'm gonna have to pick up another internship for that. But you guys have made it possible for me to do this part-time. I honestly would have stopped doing this if I was not getting support as I am. You know, obviously with you tuning in, watching videos, and also with all the donations and YouTube memberships and Patreon memberships. But yeah. So us or else. What is this? Forward. She didn't hear anybody. She fired shots at who she thought was an intruder. Was met with fire from a detective. Seems like a Breonna Taylor type of situation here. So overall, is this for we, the descendants of African slaves, demand equitable financial consideration from Lloyds of London's for their shameful role in the transatlantic slave trade? Is this not the right thing? Do you mean the documents? Second place prize? Go down. Oh, that's not the right screen. You mean this entire document? A letter to John Neal, CEO, Lloyd's of London. Your company's response to the open letter as that representing the descendants of transatlantic slave trade, though we appreciate you reaching out and again stating Lloyd's, is deeply sorry for its role. What is this company? The concept of leveling the playing field that you refer to in your letter is a concept that does not sufficiently address the 400 plus years of oppression, marginalization, and inequality. It does not address in an expedient way how Lloyd's... What is, I don't know what this is. 1 second. Lloyd's of London is an insurance and reinsurance market located in London, England. It's not an insurance company. It's a corporate body governed by the Lloyd's Act 1871 and subsequent acts of Parliament. So that's interesting. So what is their role in the slave trade? What, Kevin? Excuse me? I know Kevin. I know Mr. Jack. We play some Call of Duty. They funded it. So how... Oh, 1871. So they don't want to pay anything back, of course. So they acknowledged their roles historically, but they don't want to repay anything back. Did you know the transatlantic slave trade that your business directly benefits from today institutionalized the sentiment that our ancestors were property and not people? So yeah. Jeez. So this is pressuring, like, is this a private entity? So this is going through, yeah. 13% of the population, only 2.6% of the I'm gonna save this because this has a lot of good this is really good to have on hand when it comes to debates and stuff and talking to people and trying to inform people. Oh wait, I banned my Nightbot by accident? I banned my Nightbot. No. How did I do that? What? Oh, thank you for the $5, Chris. Oh yeah, here's the cat. Here's the cat. Oh, Nightbot's back. Alright, I'll put you back to bed. Sorry. I picked him up for a second. I forgot this cam was over the... Cope, cat, yep. Alright, is there anything else I wanted to show? I wasn't gonna stream tonight. I need a little bit of a break probably, but I wanted to talk about this. Because, I don't think many people are gonna talk about this today, in general. And it's pretty important.
Malcolm X.
I think a lot of people are confused by the new Arabic name, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz.
This is I've always had the name on my passport, Malik El Shabazz. I only used it in...
Oh, where is it? Malcolm... Best speech.
In order for you and me to devise some kind of method or strategy to offset some of the events or a repetition of the events that have taken place here in Los Angeles recently, we have to go to the root. We have to go to the cause. Dealing with the condition itself is not enough. And it is because of our effort toward getting straight to the root that people oftentimes think we're dealing in hate.
We are oppressed. We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy. Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate, you should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you? And I, for one, as a Muslim, believe that the white man is intelligent enough. If he were made to realize how black people really feel and how fed up we are without that old compromise and sweet talk. Stop sweet talking him. Tell him how you feel. Tell him what kind of hell you've been catching, and let him know that if he's not ready to clean his house up, if he's not ready to clean his house up, he shouldn't have a house. It should catch on fire and burn down.
Yeah, so that's where you see the contradiction between him and MLK, of course. Burn it down, more revolutionary. MLK is more reformist, more pacifist, less aggressive in the approach, of course. All right, I'm actually gonna be calling it a night. Thank you, everybody, for watching and subscribing and donating and everything, of course. The next stream will be more planned. It'll be more like, you know, PragerU stuff. Actually, what is this PragerU video? You know what? Never mind. I'm too tired to give a good reaction to it or whatever. Yeah, look at Odyssey. Flexible. Look at that. Meow. Meow. Look at me. Look at me. I'll probably be live on Wednesday, I guess. I'll probably take a day off. There's just so much stuff going on right now, dude. Yeah, I can't lick my back. Yeah, I gotta buy my books for school. I gotta start school again. I gotta move into school. I gotta find a way to get a car. I don't know. I gotta get friends that are streamers so I can get free viewers. It's pretty hard when you don't have any friends who are streamers, you know, to just take their get their viewership. I gotta make some. I'll probably message Ben Burgess about next week. I'm not gonna try licking my own back on camera. I'm sorry. Alright. Alright, T. Good night. If anybody ever wants to message me, remember, it's in the, I'll check the Patreon group on Discord, but nobody ever does it. Nobody ever says anything in there. Streamers Club, yeah. Oh, wait, Inauguration Day is tomorrow. Is Wednesday, because today's Tuesday. Oh, no. Oh, no. I'm scared. I'm scared. Yeah, I should. Yeah, thanks. Today is Tuesday because I'm on the east side. Yeah. This is what my microphone looks like. This is what with no cover on it. You hear a lot of pops. Listen to how it fixes. So it's like principled, progressive, pragmatic. Principled, progressive, pragmatic. Sounds much better. All right. Yeah, I did. I bought premium. I did. Look at it. Right here. Look, premium. Premium YouTube. Amazing. Cool. All right. Good night.